Hey guys, this is TM25MD and I'm bringing you a tier list and my thoughts after a couple weeks of testing and observing the meta. So I'll be giving you guys a try to be an unbiased tier list. Again, this is strictly my opinion on how I rank these decks. So please be kind. And I hope you guys enjoy. What's going on, guys? This is TM25MD, and I have something a little bit different today. As I mentioned in my previous videos, I will be, after I had tested every single faction, as you guys see in my last few playlists, I played every single faction. I decided to do a review, as well as a tier list, in my opinion, tier list of the decks that have been played thus far with the latest Duelyst expansion, Unearthed Prophecy. So I will be going over the tier list first, and then the cards, and then how they perform on ladder. I have 3 sites open for you guys that will hopefully give you guys an idea. Again, this is not 100%, this is just my opinion, but I think this tier list is relatively accurate in my opinion. So I'll be doing the tier list first so you guys can get a glimpse of that, and then I'll just be talking in the background so you can feel free to tune out or just listen in the background while I talk about the new cards and the my latest impressions of these cards, as well as how they look on ladder and possibly tournament play. So we'll just go right into it right here. So this is the Unearthed Prophecy Tier List 1.87, my opinion, just to get that out of the way and to be perfectly clear. Tier 1, Tempo Heal Zaran. Honestly, a fantastic deck that I've seen that's pretty fast if you let it. If you get some early clerics down, that 1 mana, 1/3, that turns a friendly space, or a tile, a nearby tile, into hollowed ground. If you can get a lot of those early, you can stack things like Fortified Assaults, makes your Fortified Assaults more powerful, as well as it gives you more procs, potential procs with Sunriser and Sunforged Lancer. So usually decks like this usually curve out to Sunriser as the top of their curve. Not many Iron Cliffs. You can run Iron Cliffs in this list, but this list usually revolves around 3 main cards, right? Sunriser, Scintilla, Sunforged Lancer, or 4 cards, and what's the last one? Sunriser, Sunforged Lancer, Scintilla, and Gold Vitriol. So you were able to clear relatively well with those cards, as well as pushing face damage. So it's a little bit of everything. You have sustain, right? You can heal yourself up and your minions to reasonable amounts of health. You can push face damage if you're able to clear a board, and that Vitriol is able to go face for 2 to 6 damage. Pretty good right there, as well as healing for your own. If you have a Scintilla down, you'll heal for 3. Notable decks that I've seen on ladder would be Pow and the Kisses, Gold Vitriol List. It's a very, very low curve, so that's pretty strong there. I've seen Hazuku's Heal Zaran, also a very low curve, usually tops off at just 1 or 2 Iron Cliffs with a bunch of Sunrisers. So that's the list right there, and those I've seen some pretty good success. I have had a lot of trouble playing against it myself. All around, it's a very balanced faction because it is able to dish out a reasonable amount of damage, heal, and clear board. So next, these two are relatively the same. Just a few cards that differentiate these 2 archetypes, and that would just be things like Punish, maybe Inkling Surge, or Choking Tendrils for that matter. But these cards, these 2 archetypes function relatively similar. They both run Ooze, Phantasm, Desolator, and what's it called? Spectral Revenant, right? and Demonic Lord for that removal as well. Tech cards could also include Void Pulse, Spectral Blade, Thunderhorn, Nethermeld, Bound Tormentor, Zeroloth, and what's that last one? I think Bound Tormentor and Zeroloth are the most common ones that you would see in an aggro list, simply because they're able Zeroloth, for example, is able to spit you out 2 mana 4/4 every time your opponent casts a spell, so that's not bad there. Bound Tormentor is a one-time effect, 2/3, that's able to get the minion your opponent just played for 2 less mana. So if you play this like on curve, let's say you're going second, your opponent plays another 2 or 3 drop, you can pretty much get that minion for free. So pretty solid there. As for Desolator, the card is a built-in like sort of pseudo Sarlacc mixed with a Void Pulse. Helps you keep up the aggression, especially if your opponent is unable to dispel it. You get like, possibly 3 face damage with it, as well as a 4 damage swing. So technically a 7-point swing if this card is able to go face, right? So that's what makes these decks pretty deadly, actually. On top of the fact that if they are able to get a Phantasm to stick, a Saberspine Tiger or a Spectral Revenant, their attack will go to astronomical levels if left unchecked. You've probably seen online or in games, or even on the official Discord, Tigers with 20 plus attack or Revenants with 20 plus attack, just able to OTK your opponent in 1 minion, right? So these two factions, or these 2 generals with an aggressive list, are highly lethal and must be played with caution. If you're going to play against them, you have to play against them with caution. You have to have removal for Phantasm. In my opinion, immediate removal for Phantasm right away, because that thing could potentially get out of hand, as you can see with the Tigers and the Revenants. Next, I won't talk about these too much because you guys probably already know about these really well. Arcanist Fae, Arcanist Kara, still a tier 1 in my opinion. Why? Because they have a snowballing effect and they have the best removal in the game. Frostburn, Chromatic Cold, Aspect of the Ravager, as it is now called, formerly Aspect of the Fox. And able to snowball with cards like Owlbeast Sage. Blue Conjurer is still a broken card, regardless of the new expansion or not. It is a still broken card. And Trinity Wing for sustain, and Gravity Wells for help your opponent to get, or help this deck get to the late game. Cards can also include Ghost Seraphim on the top end of these decks. They are pretty much used to close out a game if their Arcanists cannot stick. So a Ghost Seraphim into a Frostburn is probably going to clear your board and have an 8/9 in your face. Very deadly. Also can be comboed well with Heart Sister, right? So you can play around it. The new expansion did give support to combat these cards. So Eternal Painter is an excellent example of combating a developed Arcanist board. If they don't play around Eternal Painter, you can clear their Owls and all their illusions, or every Arcanist that they have, just by the end of your turn, right? So I think Eternal Painter is a fantastic card to combat this archetype, right? So again, we won't talk too much about these cards because you pretty much know what they do. To finish off Tier 1, in my opinion, Obelisk Xerix is there. They got a ton of support this expansion. They have Trigon Obelisk, the 0/9 Legendary Obelisk, which spawns 3 Dervishes at the start of your turn, as well as Reassemble. Reassemble is a fantastic card that you can use to reposition your obelisks as well as draw a card. So basically you pay 2 mana to reposition your obelisk as well as draw a card. So pretty much 2 mana to draw a card and a heal, right? Pretty solid cycle card nonetheless. Vitruvian has a ton of draw now. Silence First, Reassemble, Whispers of the Sands, etc. On top of that new 2-drop, that's a 1/1. I forget the name of it. It's a 1/1 and it's Dying Wish. You can draw a Scion's Wish, so Scion's first, second, or third, to your hand once it dies. Honestly, I haven't seen that card played that often, but you can still run it if you want the extra draw. But I feel like those 3 cards, Scion's First, Whispers of the Sands, and Reassemble, is more than enough draw for Obelisk Xerix, and it's also potential burst damage. On top of that, they have some more removal. They have Sand Swirl Reader, which is a pseudo removal card, right? It's like a Hailstone Prison with a body, and as well as turns that space into Exhuming Sand. So it can also work on your minions, for example. So let's say you don't have Reassemble and you want to reposition your Obelisk, you can use it on that, right? I haven't seen it too often that work that way, but nonetheless, it's not a bad idea. So Sand Swirls, pretty great removal all around. Can get rid of big threats like Amara Healers. Can get rid of big things like Ironclad Guardians, Lava Slashers, etc. They also have some more support in developing board, really. They have cards like Cataclysmic Fault, which is potentially a late game finisher, or not a finisher, a snowballing effect. Once you get Cataclysmic Fault down, you are guaranteed 5 minions, 5 Poop Dervishes to start your turn, or if you can somehow move them around, provided that you can summon a minion from your action bar during that turn. So pretty decent snowballing effect there. They also have cards like Arid Unmaking, which is not bad as a turn 2 play. So let's say you're going first, you drop your Ethereal Obelisk, or any Obelisk for that matter. Instead of using your Dervish to go face, you can use cards like Arid Unmaking, which turns it into Exhuming Sand, so you can develop more of a board early on. So they have cards like that. Sickle is also a decent card, a decent one-of card in my opinion. You can combo it well with Falcius. Turn any minion that you destroy into Exhuming Sand, so again, you can develop board early on that way. And the last card they received was Superior Mirage, which was their Magmar, tech card now. It used to be Allomancer, but this card trumps it. Vitruvian still struggles against Plasma Storm, not going to lie there. But they are now able to deal with Magmar's minions more efficiently than just Blood of Air, Entropic Decay, Dominate Will, whatever have you. This Superior Mirage allows you to counteract cards like Mecantor, Warbeast, and Lava Slasher, giving you 3 copies of those minions. And if they're Rush, you use it on a Mecantor, you get 3 Mecantors yourself, that's potentially 12 face damage, and you can probably close out a game if you play it on Mecantor. It's that strong of a card. Also very strong against aggro Lilith and Cast. They drop a Revenant. You can Superior Mirage that if they let you, and that's potentially 18 damage face. So incredible against those 2 factions in particular. So that's tier 1 in my opinion. I think these archetypes are by far the strongest due to their consistency, and because if you look, they all have good draw. Heroes Iran has obviously Trinity Oath, which was one of the best draw cards in the game. Desolator keeps your hand size full. Bound Tormentor, Fae with Circulus, Trinity Wing, Blue Conjurer, and Obelisk with their new tech cards. So not quite tier 1, but and a little bit better than tier 2 in my opinion is Spell High. I think Spell High got a decent amount of support with the new card Scroll Bandit and Mind Cage Oni. So those cards are able to, Scroll Bandit is able to steal your opponent's spell cards from their deck and putting them into your hand. Whereas Mind Cage Oni, when played, whenever your opponent casts a spell, it's probably going to be removal of some sort. You'll be able to take that and you'll be able to use it for your own. So Spell High got a lot of support there. These decks usually top off at Spelljammers and Four Winds Magi. Hold on, just gotta sip some water. Usually top off at 4 Winds Magi and Spelljammer. So you can pretty much attribute this to a min-max style list with Blood Rage Mask. These lists are very fast. They're very lethal if they're going first and have cards like Scroll Bandit or Katara in hand. Because if you decide to move forward, they could potentially do 9 damage right off. And that usually, if it's not a heal-oriented list, if you're not playing a heal-oriented list, a 9 damage backstab will pretty much win the game then and there, because a 6/6 with the potential to do more damage is quite lethal. So they have the potential just to finish you off within the first couple turns of the game when going first. Reason why I don't have it as tier 1, if you can't draw those combo pieces early on, you have to take a slower route. It's not too slow, but you have to try and search for those combo pieces, and if you can't deal out that damage, or if an opponent can just out heal you, or if you don't draw your draw cards, it's pretty much, or you burn through your hand too early, the deck's top decking skills is very poor, because there isn't much draw outside the Spelljammer, so you'll have to wait a couple turns to get a decent combo off, because with 1 to 2 cards in hand, Spell High doesn't really have much, doesn't really have many options for lethal, right? So you're trying to look for those early combos that can pretty much win you the game if you're going first. So you're always trying to look for lethal with this kind of archetype. So that's why I have it as tier 1.5 as opposed to tier 1 or 2. Alright, so moving on to tier 2, topping it off. These are, again, in no order, the best. These are not ranked in tier 2, just the ordering I have them in. So if they're tier 2, they're tier 2. It's not like this is the best tier 2 deck or this is the best tier 1 deck. It's just tier 2. So, mid-range Voth, right? Not many new cards introduced to support this. In my opinion, mid-range Voth is fantastic, as is still. They have a couple new cards that you can incorporate. You can incorporate a Grandmaster Craigasm, Grandmaster Krygon, as it is formerly called. Top off your list. That's about it, in my opinion. The new cards like Catalyst, Quill Beast, I don't think it's worth running in mid-range Voth. If you want to run Catalyst, Quill Beast, be more of a combo-oriented style list, right? So mid-range Voth, very strong as you've seen. Just chaining Lava Slashers, chaining Mechantors, dealing lots of amount of face damage while maintaining big minions and your general on board with a reasonable amount of attack. Very threatening at all points, all stages of the game, right? The early game is pretty strong with Young Silithar, Rose. Even a Flash Sunsteel for that matter is pretty strong. Burnhorn, I still think it's a tier 2. I think it went down because these lists have so much sustain and decent amount of healing, or excuse me, these archetypes have a decent amount of sustain and healing that they are able to keep themselves relatively healthy and pressure Burnhorn before they can get a Decimus combo off. So that's why I think Burnhorn has moved down from tier 1 to tier 2. But still, nonetheless, a Decimus Tech Spikes combo-oriented list. The out-of-hand damage this deck can do is still ridiculous. Potentially 9 damage or more every turn, or excuse me, out of hand on turn 7 is pretty deadly, honestly. So that's why I still have it as rank as a tier 2. The cards include things like Blood Tier Alchemist, a very low curve, usually topping off at Decimus. Some people have decided to run in some slashers for some synergy, for some snowballing effect, and controlling the board a little bit until you can draw Decimus Tech Spikes. You can even play Decimus Tech Spikes on 5 mana if you could flash out Decimus, which also makes it pretty scary because you'll refill your hand, deal 9, and continue on with the game. So cards like you could run things like Lava Lance for early game clears. Also combos well with a Young Silithar in egg form, just an egg minion, does 4 damage to clear minion, pretty strong there. Next would be more of a Unearthed Prophecy list. So Control Riva, cards like Eternal Painter have really boosted this archetype up, in my opinion. Eternal Painter is very strong for just controlling the board in general. You can get rid of large threats like Lava Slasher, Cantor War Beast, or pretty much anything that will threaten your face and or board. You can plop one of these down, and it'll turn everything around it into 0-2 pandas. My list, as you've seen earlier, it's pretty strong against pretty much anything that would look to try and hit you hard. So this archetype looks to win the Spiral Technique or Geomancer. It could have some more aggressive options to make it a mid-range style list by incorporating cards like Katara and Scroll Bandit. But this archetype's ability to control the board is pretty strong because it also incorporates cards like Mind Cage Oni. It's just like Aggro Riva. It uses this minion to pretty much gain extra cards, card advantage, and maintain hand size, as well as potentially extra removal that your opponent is playing. So if you're able to steal like a Chromatic Cold, a Punish, a Demonic Lure, a Natural Selection from Mind Cage Oni, or even a Roar or Overload, that's pretty strong right there. It's also a 4/3, so it avoids Plasma Storm, right? If your opponent plays Plasma Storm while Mind Cage Oni is in Sentinel form, it will not be affected. However, it does still get targeted by Natural Selection. So if your opponent has like a Falchius on board, what's 3 attack in Magmar? A Rage Binder, and you have a Sentinel, Mind Cage Oni in Sentinel form, they decide to use Natural Selection on your Sentinel, it will still die, even though it will turn into Mind Cage Oni in half 4 attack. Did a little bit of texting there. So Control Riva, very strong in the early game. You throw some down, some healing in the early game, some like Healing Mystics, some Azure Heralds, and a lot of removal. Gatatsu is another tech card that they have to control the board. It is Cycle. You draw the card at the end of your turn, so you're again able to maintain hand size pretty well. Also combos very well with Twin Strike, right? You'll draw 2 cards. Those cards will just cycle itself and you're able to clear the board. So pretty strong there. They also run things like OBS, Duelyst, to help get them to that late game to win with Geomancer and or Spiral Technique. Very strong faction. I personally have a lot of fun playing this archetype. I know Rivraf has his own version. It's pretty similar to my build that I featured a few days ago, except I think he runs things like I think he runs a little bit lower of the curve. I think he runs things like Twilight Reef Key, as well as Scroll Bandit, but it's still nonetheless a very control-oriented shell. Okay, next we have Lurking Fear, Lilith, and Cassava. So Lurking Fear got a ton of support in the likes of Desolator and Necromata, and the neutral minion Dagona. So Lurking Fear now has a lot of potential. They have decent 2-drops that you can run early on with Phantasm. You can also run it with Ooze. I think those cards can replace Jaxi. Yes, Jaxi does have its cost reduced by Lurking Fear. I just still don't think it's worth making room for that when you have these new cards able to take its place. I think Phantasm is potentially more threatening than a Jaxi. Even if you have to pay 1 more mana after Lurking Fear is paid, I think a Phantasm is very threatening. So you can make this more of like an aggressive Lurking Fear, however you want to build it. I just classified it all as Lurking Fear. Dagona is a card that also has Dying Wish. It's an 8/8. So after a Lurking Fear or 2, it's 6/7 mana, right? It's a 6/7 mana, 8/8. So it just pretty much eats any minion wherever on the board. And then when it dies, it spits it out. So if you want to use Transformation removal on it, that's already pretty good for for the person playing Dagona. Why? Because you won't be able to get your minion back. You transformed Dagona. So Blood of Air, Aspect of the Fox. that will usually cost you your minion as well. So it's a decent trade if it's able to eat up something like Elmira Healer, Spectral Revenant. It's a decent trade right there. But if they can't answer it with transformation removal, if your opponent can't answer it with transformation removal, you usually have to trade board into it, and it being an 8/8, that's a lot of stats to take down. Usually cards that can get rid of this card, to kill this card or destroy it, as the game calls it, would be things like Martyrdom, which you'll heal your opponent for 8, so I don't know if that's the best play there. Punish, I think that's the most efficient way to do it. What else can you, if you have a lot of hollowed grounds down, you can use Sunriser procs or Fortified Assault. That's another means of doing it, but I think Punish would be the most efficient way of dealing with Dagona. But what Lurking Fear really got this expansion was Necromata, which pretty much gives them which is a better Unseven in my opinion. Gives you 2 Dying Wish minions, so it's very selective. It's a tutor card, right? So if you know there's only a certain amount of Lurking Fear, Dying Wish minions left in your deck, you can try and search for those 2 cards specifically by just sacrificing off your Necromata. So on turn 4, on 4 mana, you can play your Necromata, Consuming Rebirth, get 2 Dying Wish minions right there. Or excuse me, not Consuming Rebirth, Darkfire Sacrifice. Consuming Rebirth also works as well, but that's a 6 mana play. But on 4 mana, you can definitely curve out into an early Revenant if you have it in hand. So you'll be able to play Revenant on 5, because for 4 mana you play Necromata, Darkfire Sacrifice, so it lowers the cost of your next minion by 2. So it works pretty well with Lurking Fear. You can easily get out those big minions early, so you can get Revenants out early, you can get Vorpal Reavers out early, you can get Klaxons and Dagonas out early for very low mana, as well as your standard Duelyst. So, and also have cards like Desolator, which also keeps you healthy and keeps your hand size relatively, maintains your hand size. So that's what really gave Lurking Fear a big boost in my opinion. Enough of a boost to make it tier 2. So that's just my opinion. So Mech Fae, you know, all of this works. The reason why I included it on tier 2, you know, the fact that it can Spirit of the Wild and Mechazor and hit you for 8 then and there, in combination with Warbird, is still a very powerful tech, because Mechazor can attack the turn it's played. So that's why I think Mech Fae is a tier 2. I hate the idea of Mechazor, but it's a good deck. I'm not going to take that away from it. So not much to be said there. Mech Fae, always be prepared for Mechazor is what I have to say. If you don't have any answers to Mechazor and you lose a ladder game, it's not that big of a deal, because you don't know how many people. I don't think Mechazor is going to be that big of a deal on ladder, because usually you can play around it with. If you're able to build a deck that can play around Mech, I don't think Mech should be that big of a deal. So if you get cheesed out by a turn 2 Mech, it's not that big of a deal. Just move on to the next game, right? So next, Walfei and Walkara, they got a lot of support. They have, on top of their Winter's Wake OTK, they can also do something different with Ghost Seraphim. So these decks kind of rely around Ghost Seraphim if they can't kill that way, or they can kill with Winter's Wake. Or if they can't kill with Winter's Wake, they can OTK early. So this could be like an all-in I think it's called Prismatic Reflection, which is a 7-mana spell that turns, you choose a minion and it turns every minion around it into that minion. So if you use it on Ghost Seraphim and you have a couple Gravity Wells, let's say you have 2 Gravity Wells that's able to be targeted by this, you'll have 3 Ghost Seraphim, right? And as a result, the second Ghost Seraphims are like considered summoned. So you're able to play another spell for free. So if you're able to play Ghost Seraphim into Shadow or Prismatic Reflection into Spirit of the Wild, and you get at least 3 minions down, that's 24 damage. If you have Kara and you're on 9 mana and you're able to play it, that's 30 damage, and that's an OTK right there. Any more than that, if you get more than 3 hits off, 3 Seraphim hits off, it's pretty much game over, right? So it's pretty powerful if you can combo early game with. I saw early versions of this list with Lady Lock or Kara. You can also have a strong early game presence with Luminous Charge, which pretty much just blows up, deals 2 damage. If you're able to buff these Luminous Charges to 1 attack, they can now attack, and as a result do 3 damage. And if they're able to hit all 5 of them, that's 15 damage face. So that's the most ideal scenario behind Luminous Charge. So that's why I think Wall, Faye, and Kara deserve a tier 2 slot. Next would be a Control Ziran. The difference between Control Ziran and a Tempo Ziran, I think you'll have to sacrifice a few of the lower cost cards, such as like Gold Vitriol, for some more high end cards like Ironcliff Guardian, some bigger minions and spells, so like Elix Stormblade, Ironcliff Guardian. So just removing those lower cost cards, in my opinion, for the higher cost cards, I think sets Control Ziran a little bit later, because I think the control game, while decent, is not as strong as something like Control Riva that just keeps throwing down painters on your big minions. So it'd be better to just tempo her out early, which I guess you can make it like a hybrid list, but that's just my opinion there. So Control Ziran, strong list, honestly. Depends on how you build it. You have a lot of options here, so that's why I think some of the late game options I think holds the deck back more than the early game options. I think the early game options now with Sanctify, Cleric, and the Gold Vitriol is very strong early game, and you're able to combo out early, clear an early board and start dominating your opponent with a lot of full health minions and possibly a buffed general. So closing out tier 2 would be Creep Cassava. So this would be more like a late game guarantee all-in on the Obliterates and the Juggernauts, some Desolators, so it's a little bit slower. It's mid-range. This would be more cards. You can still include cards like Phantasm for that potential OTK with Tiger or Spectral Revenant. But this deck looks to aim to win with Nethermeld Juggernauts, Nethermeld Thunderhorns. Thunderhorns is pretty powerful with Nethermeld. Usually runs cards like Klaxon, though aggro cast can run Klaxon as well as a potential root to your opponent. So you're able to root your opponent in place and try and finish them off there. That's what mid-range casts there. So they are probably lacking cards like Void Pulse. They'll probably be running more cards like Corporeal Cadence, which destroys a minion, and its attack is dealt to your opponent. So if you have a 5, 6, 7, maybe even 10 attack Juggernaut, you're able to do 10 damage to the face. I have yet to see that be pulled off. I have seen it, Corporal Cadence being pulled off in Lurking Fear. It's a decent combo there, so you can use it on your Dagonas. You can use it on cards like Klaxon or Vorpal Reaver, and you'll get a lot of face damage in, as well as the Dying Wish effect. So Creep Cast, as a result, I think the fact that it has cards like Desolator is pretty strong to help it sustain to get to that late game. And so this could be technically a control list, depending on how control-oriented you want this list to be. So you could be all in, like running 3 punishes, unlike Count Aggro Crash, which usually run about 2 punishes. This could be 3 punishes, 3 Nethermelts, 3 Lures, a bunch of provokes like Klaxon, and then potentially comboing out with your Juggernauts. So Bond Argent is always around the tier 2, tier 3 area. They did get some more support now, I saw our hacker have some pretty good success with his Bond Argent. So it was the standard Bond Argent shell with your Aegis Barriers, your Duelyst, your Ironcliffe Guardians, your Elix Stormblades, but this deck also incorporates cards like Thunderhorn and Magesworn. So Thunderhorn is able to, if you can Divine Bond it, that's fantastic. That's 9 damage AoE, but it's also great. Usually you'll have to replace it over Duelyst, or you'll clog the 4 slot a little bit. But you're able to potentially threaten a board clear with Roar, right? So if you're able to Roar this, that's 6 damage AoE. As for Magesworn with Bond, it's a 3/8. Your opponent can no longer use 2 or less mana spells, so that's including Bloodborne spell. So pretty decent there. You're able to Divine Bond it, because Divine Bond is 3 mana. That's 11 damage right there. And also prevents your opponent from hitting you. So this deck, if you're able to get the Magesworn out, it really shuts down cards, archetypes like Spell High. Can even shut down things like Aggro Cass and Aggro Fae, or excuse me, Aggro Cass and Aggro Lilith, because they are no longer able to play cards like Demonic Lore, Punish, or their BBS. Natural Selection is no longer a thing. Chromatic Cold, Aspect of the Fox, or Aspect of the Radger, excuse me. Aspect of Shimzar is no longer be able to be played. Cards like Whisper of the Sands, Silence First Wish, Reassemble aren't able to be played by Vitruvian. So pretty decent in that regard there. Also stops your Both from Bloodborne Spell Overload. So stops him from getting too big. So I think that Magesworn and Bond Argent has given it enough to be playable. Though I do think they can be bursted down early game by fast lists, and if you're able to successfully able to remove all of their Bond targets, the deck suffers in that regard. So if you're able to remove all of them. So I guess stacking more Bond targets, make it more of a hybrid list, would make it better there by adding cards like Artilite Sentinel to deal with the early game. Can make Bond Argent. That's why I think it's not quite tier 3. It's potentially leading closer more to tier 2 in my opinion, because of that regard. Depending on how you want to build this list, because there's many options about Bond Argent, the Magesworns, the Thunderhorns, Duelyst, etc. Tier 3. A couple of my decks are in tier 3. I think, while I did have success with them, I don't think they're as strong as they are. So this would include things like Aggro Fae. Their early game minions are rather weak, pretty much just relying on, I guess you can run cards like Crystal Cloaker, but I was running cards like Healing Mystic, Prizing Fist, Azure Herald, to get us towards the little mid game and win with things like aggro with Freeblade and Moonlit Basilisk. Those are pretty much the key cards in that regard. So it also has the standard removal package. What makes Aggro Fae pretty strong is what you can do with Thunderhorn. So you can play Thunderhorn safely, and then Aspect of the Shimzar, turn your opponent's minion into a battle pet, and then that battle pet will ram itself into Thunderhorn, and you'll be able to get a decent Thunderhorn play off in that regard. So Aggro Fae, decent there. You can run cards like Cryptographer, put your opponent on an earlier time, on a shorter timer, getting some early Warbirds in. So an extra 2 to 3 Warbirds is pretty strong in that regard. It's, it's 4 to 6 damage. So Tempo Minion Kaelios. Kaelios got a decent amount of support this expansion with cards like Flame Wreath and Squirrel Bandit. So you can run a minion base com deck like that. Also has potential with Squirrel Bandit if you want to run that. Though they do have Flame Wreath, and that seems kind of hype. In my opinion, Flame Wreath is not that strong. I mean, for a 5 mana play, you can do something like Flame Wreath, Bloodborne Spell, Blink, and Juxtaposition, and you'll do like a 4 damage AoE, but that's also 2 cards. And that's in your entire turn, and you only have a 2/4 on board. So I don't think it's that strong of a play. I think you're better off going with a 1 less mana. If you had to choose between these two, I'd probably go with Battle Panda over it, simply because you can get it out earlier, and it's pretty much guaranteed AoE 1 damage. If you can throw a Killing Edge on it next turn, it's a little bit more of a threat in my opinion. Temple Archeon, they did get some support with Aurora. Aurora is, I think, more of a tempo card because you're able to throw it down with a bunch of 2-attack minions that you have. This includes Silverguard Knight and Windblade Adept. You can play those minions out of range so their Zeal is not in effect, so it will boost up your Aurora. And then you move your General into Zeal range, and you'll be able to get those Zeal effects off, as well as buffing your Aurora, so potentially threatening your opponent with a lot of damage. Looks to overwhelm your opponent early game with cards like Archetypes Sentinel and Azurite Lion, as well as getting some decent Holy Immolation plays on 6 mana, and potentially beating down your opponent with Arclight Regalia. So Temple Archeon, decent. If you're able to keep your distance away from them, or pretty much control their board and let them run out of cards, because if they don't draw their Trinity Eos, they don't really have that much draw unless they're running things like Spelljammer. So if they're unable to draw their Spelljammers and Trinity Eos, they'll run out of steam pretty quickly. So next we have both Titan Ziran and Titan Argent. I think Titan Ziran is a little bit better than Titan Argent because she's able to sustain her minions with her Bloodborne spell, unlike Argent, which is a little bit more aggressive. Problem what I have with Titan is that you don't have any form of draw outside of Spelljammer and Sojourner. So if you're unable to draw your Titan, or if you just can't draw well, you're lacking a lot of cards as well. But anyways, if you're unable to draw Titan, the list is rather lackluster, in my opinion. So you can throw in tech cards to keep your opponent from playing spells as well, like Mage Sworn. But the lack of Holy Immolation, Tempest, also cards like Trinity Oath, I think really set this list back. That's just my opinion. I think Titan is borderline meme. I think it's not considered a meme. I think it's a little bit more than a meme. But the fact that you aren't running powerful spells really hurt it, in my opinion. So next would be, this is a fun list, but it's kind of funny. Would be like a mid-range Flying Xerix and Sox. So you'll have the Aether Summoning and pretty much just flood the field with Dragon Larks and Skywings and Wings of Paradise, and then try and get a decent combo off with the board that you got for like 7 mana. So you're able to play like 9 minions on like 7 mana. So basically on 8 mana you can drop like Grandmaster Noshrak and just do a ton of damage that way. You can also build this with like a Golem list as well. What I think about this list is like you go all in on the Aether Summoning, right? And your list just gets screwed by Plasma Storm or Frostburn because all those minions have 3 health. So it's could be a real feels bad man. So they can also, this deck is also susceptible to Grasp of the Agony. But it's still a funny list nonetheless. Very powerful if you're not playing factions like Magmar and Vanar. So I guess you just have to watch out for those ones. Vesper card, they gave Vesper a lot of support, I guess, with new cards like Shivers, which is a ramp card. Helps you ramp into that new spell. It's 6 mana, which gives you an ambush of minions, which is 2 Snow Chasers, a Wolf Raven, and a Crystal Cloaker. So that's how many? That's 7 mana's worth of minions in a 6 mana card, all in one. So pretty good value there, though those minions aren't very strong and they can't do anything that turn. So usually on 6 mana, your opponent can just play something that will just lethal you on that at that time. But you know, you can overwhelm if you're able to. If your opponent is unable to deal with your minions, your buffed minions, you can overwhelm your opponent in that regard. So next two would be combo Starhorn or combo Vath. This would entail Catalytic Cool Beast with the Primordial, I think it's Primordial Rage, I forget the actual name, where every time damage was done this turn, give a minion +1/+1. So the combo there is you play like something like Elucidator or any minion for that matter, have a bunch of minions on board, play that card or a bunch of spells, and then play that card. And you could potentially have like a 20 attack, 20 health minion that just usually just OTKs your opponent, right? Problem with this deck, in my opinion, is if you aren't able to get to develop a board, the combo is just not there. Plain and simple. Next, Apex Control Voth, very similar to Control or Mid-Range Voth, except this deck looks to win with Evolutionary Apex, which is a 7-mana spell, which pretty much is a Yu-Gi-Oh style card. Just dump your entire hand full of minions, and your opponent dumps his entire hand of minions, and you just duke it out and see who has the best minions on board. If it's you, you win the game. If it's them, then you lose, pretty much. So if like you drop down, if you think your 2 Lava Slashers is better than your opponent's potentially 3 Revenants, I guess there. But the problem is you have to get the 7 mana. So if you don't really want to develop your board early on, then you could be in a little bit of trouble against aggressive list. So you're not going to be using face to trade, which is kind of defeats the purpose of playing Vath, because that's the whole point of his Bloodborne spell, to efficiently trade early game with small minions. So that's Evolutionary Apex Vath. That finishes off Tier 3. So Tier 4, the last tier. We're getting through it, guys. I'm trying to get through it. My voice might be, or my mouth might be a little bit dry. But we'll get through it. Last tier, Tier 4, Grow Magmar. Yeah, the Grow got a lot of synergy and support this expansion with the new tile, Primordial Flourish, as well as cards like Omniseer, and you could potentially buff War Pup. But again, these decks are way too slow, way too greedy. So if your opponent is able to deal with your board and your Godhammers and your Malokis, you're in for a load of trouble. Reason why I think Grow is very slow. If you want to play that card that turns a 2/2 area into Primal Flourish, that's 1 turn, right? If you want to play it early game. If you want to play a couple minions on that, that's another turn. And to reap the effects of that, if you don't have Godhammer or Maloki, that takes another turn. So potentially 3 turns to get some benefits. Very slow in my opinion. Not a strong archetype. Next, Mantra. This could be argued that it can be a Tier 3 deck, but if you don't draw your Adjudicators, those are the only minions in the deck typically. I have seen some lists with Rockadoptera and Lantern Fox, but if you don't, but the standard list usually I think we're just running Mana Fortress and Adjudicators. If you're unable to draw those cards, or if you just don't draw Mantra, you're in for a load of trouble. Sure, the Mantra is nice. If you get like a 10 damage Mantra, heal 10, deal 10, or even deal 12 if you play like something like Bloodborne Spell, or deal 14 if one of those cards was 8 gates. Yeah, you'll go up to a relatively healthy amount, but if you didn't include Gatatsu in that combo, you're going to be out of cards. And top decking. So you can get overwhelmed during that time you're trying to build up another Mantra or trying to win with Spiral. You can just get overwhelmed in that regard. And if your opponent has healing, you only have 2 Mantras. Let's say they're able to survive the 2 Mantras, you're pretty much donezo's. You don't have much to come back outside of Spiral Technique. And if they're able to keep themselves, again, relatively healthy for the entirety of the game, including through those mantras, it's not a winning scenario. Next, Doom Cassava. Trying to win with Doom is very slow. It's potentially, if you can get it out early with a Mana Forger or Adjudicator, then great. But even then, you'll still have to wait an extra 3 turns, and if your opponent knows, usually people will know you're trying to play like a Doom style list, because you'll just be playing nothing but heals, removal, provoke minions. So you can definitely get overwhelmed in the early game. Now you can run cards like Sinister Silhouette to block your opinion off from advancing on you. You can also run in Silhouette Tracer. But the deck lacks a lot of burst potential and pretty much only relies on Doom. Some lists I have seen don't even run Revenant, which is a big mistake in my opinion. I've seen EMPs run over Revenant. I don't think that's worth. But you know, nonetheless, if you're able to get the Doom off, it's an amazing feeling. But if not, it's a very slow, inconsistent deck, in my opinion. And lastly, Tier 4, we have Artifact Sock. Sock didn't really get any artifact support. In fact, she actually got nerfed because Autarch's Gifts got nerfed with the inclusion of Thunderclap, and now with Sickle, you can't pull that Wildfire Ankh as consistently as you were able to before. So I think Artifact Sock is hurts in that regard, and therefore at the bottom of at Tier 4. But anyways, next, not ranked are Lilith Swarm and Swarm Argeon. Why I didn't rank them is because they pretty much depend on how the meta. They're pretty much their ranking differs on depending on the meta. So if there's not a lot of AOE, then Swarm Lilith and Swarm Argeon are free to go. But if there is a ton of Vanar, Magmar, and Plasma Storms on board, then they struggle a lot. As for Swarm Argeon, there's a lot of Dispel, so I don't know if I can rank it as highly as like Swarm Lilith if there's not a lot of AoE, because there is a lot of Lightbenders going around, a lot of Sunblooms, some EMPs as well, so that can really shut down Swarm Argeon. So how have these decks performed? We'll just go to MMR host. There will be a timestamp, right? So let's just take a look at the ladder, right? So how have these decks performed? We see a lot of, this is both an MMR rank and a ladder rank. So this is the CPG. This is what you would see on as the official ladder at the end of the month. So Dragal's number first. If the season ended today, he would be first in S rank, but he's only second in terms of MMR. MMR is just, you know, combination of your record and how many games you played. I forget the actual formula. But this is just to give you an idea. You know, Rivrath has had an amazing run with his control Riva, 71 and 6 and 16. Give you an idea. I'm fourth on ladder, but my MMR is not as high as other people's, right? Also, we see a lot of aggro Cass, aggro Lilith, pretty much on the top of this ladder. Some Rivas. The control Riva, as I said, some Zirans, which are pretty strong. Pao loves his Ziran. He's made an incredible list. Zohan's been playing Vitruvian, which is pretty strong. You notice there's no Kalios. There's one Mag, which was, I believe it was a mid-range Vath because it had Lava Slashers. I remember watching a couple of his games. Some Lionars, but mainly you're seeing here are Cassavas, because aggro Cassava is just very powerful. There's one Kalios, that's just low though. So that's what we have here. Reason why, let's go to the statistics. So, but before we go, if you notice the higher MMRs, this would be usually people in S rank, right? You know, S rank 17, 16, 64, 67, 4, and 1 right here, right? So usually these people in S rank are usually from like 1350 to 1500, 1600. So what have we seen in the 1400s plus? We don't have the 1300s games, unfortunately. A lot of Cassava, as we see. Cassava's topping most of the lists on ladder and S rank. Same with a lot of Zoran. So those 2 tier 1 lists, as I said. Xerix is there as well. Some Rivas, the control Rivas, are tier 1, as I mentioned earlier. Actually, control Rivas tier 2, but it is a very common, it's a very skill-based list. So if you're able to pilot it well, it's very good. So pretty much as I thought. Aggro Lilith, I think it gets outshined by Aggro Cass. So, you know, there's the Phase, which is probably Arcanist. I know not Mesel Min-Maxer loves his Arcanist Kara. A lot of people still want to play Arcanist Fae as well, on top of Mech Fae. So that's why we have a lot of Fae up here. Right? So that's the idea of the MMR. I don't think there's any, I don't know why there's 1600 here, because it's a 1 in 1600. So yeah, mid-range Both in the lower levels of play is pretty strong, because sometimes people just can't have answers to back-to-back Lava Slashes, right? Lastly, we'll just go over my last impressions of the cards of Unearthed Prophecy, right? Starting off with with Lionar. Sunrise Cleric, fantastic in Tempo Zoran. 1 mana, 1/3, pretty good stats for a 1 mana card, just like Katara. You know, it starts getting those early procs, those potentials for early procs. Yeah, very fantastic card in Zoran, very strong. Sanctify, same thing goes for it. Plus 1/1 for 1 mana, pretty good. It's a Scion's First. Instead of drawing a card, you get a Hallowed Ground, so there's some more heal synergy there. So I think these 3 cards are staples in Tempo Heal Zoran, just because of the value they can get over the course of the game. Like, getting 1 Hallowed Ground may seem okay, but that Hallowed Ground might heal your general or a couple minions for, you know, 1 to 2 or maybe even 3 health. So this minion has got pretty good value for its stats for 1 mana. Same thing with Sanctify. Can put your minions out of range for you know, Plasma Storm, Natural Selection, right? Or even Phoenix Fire, right? Can be used on like a damaged Scintilla, right? It's at 2 health. It'll gain plus 1/1. It's a 4/3, and then it'll turn that space into Hollow Ground, and then suddenly it's a 4/4. Puts it out of Phoenix Fire range. Fortified Assault again comes very well with the early Sunrise Clerics and Sanctifies, and it's a very good removal. If you have like 2 to 3, if you, let's say you have 3 Hallowed Grounds down, you can do 4 damage. So you can get rid of cards like 4/1's Magi, anything with 4 health for that matter. Pure Blade Enforcer, it's a little bit greedy because it's very dependent on what your opponent plays. It could be a 2/4 if your opponent casts a spell, but usually they can just face it twice or just Tiger it down early game and have a 3/1 stick on board. So I don't think Pure Blade Enforcer is that strong. There are better options in terms of efficiency and aggression. Windblade Adept is just simply better. It's a 3/3. Azurite Lion, you know, has the celerities, a lot better. Channeled Breath, not that great. Yes, I can see the support with the Zoran, but it's just not worth running. Whereas you can just run Sundrop Elixir and potentially get some more procs off, some heal procs off for less mana, and it's 5 health. You know, you would have to get at least 3 minions on board in order for this to gain more value than a Sundrop Elixir. But again, you can play 2 Sundrop Elixirs and heal for 10, whereas this thing would only get, you know, 6 health, right, for 2 mana. Veil Ascension, haven't seen many of it. Because usually the heal, I thought this would be fantastic initially, but I guess it's not as good as I thought it was. Because usually with the heal synergy, you're able to keep your, and the Hallowed Grounds, you're able to keep yourself and your minions at relatively healthy levels, so that there isn't that much of a need to revive your minions. And plus it is random. what you revive. So it's probably going to be an early game minion. And plus, you can't really control. Your opponent just will like to step on the hollow ground tiles to prevent you from getting some heal procs. So I don't think this card is that great from what I've seen. Aurora, decent only in tempo lists in my opinion. If you can get, again, a lot of 2-drops to attack minions, like Blood Tier Alchemist, Arclight Sentinel, Windblade Adept, and Silverguard Knight out of Zeal. This thing can get a lot of damage in, or a lot of attack buffs for that matter. Ethereal Congregation, give a friendly minions in a 2x2 area +2/+2. Trash card, in my opinion. Very greedy, only good when you're ahead. Even then, when you're ahead, you're probably better off developing another minion or healing your own minions. Soul Piercer, decent again in tempo lists. If you want to put your opponent on their heels and they're forced to retreat, this thing can punish them for running away, right? So decent in that regard. Outside of tempo lists, I don't really see it. A tempo Argent, I don't really see it in most decks, honestly. War Adjudicator, it's a bit greedy. I think this is best played in Bond Argent. Right? Don't really need it in heals or Ran because she is able to heal her minions to full pretty consistently. So your opponent would need like things like Sunbloom or just hard removal to get rid of them right away. So War Adjudicator, yeah, it's a good body. Okay card at best. Hollow Bulwark, trash. It's a very I'm winning card and I'm going to win some more and just beat you down. But I think it's too expensive, pretty bad. Alabaster Titan, borderline meme with those decks, as I've mentioned in the tier list. Yeah, again, you're not running spells, so yeah, you get the full set of equipment. You get the Skywind Glaives, the Arclight Regalia, and the Hollow Bulwark, which pretty much could finish off your opponent. But if you're lacking healing outside of Scintilla, and draw outside of those 2 cards that I mentioned, Sojourner and Spelljammer, I think these types of decks are pretty inconsistent and are very punishable. Hyperion's Claim, great, fantastic control card late game. If you're looking to develop big minions in the late game, like Ironclad Guardians, Elix Steelhorn Blades, big minions like that, Magesworn, EMP, Excelsius if you're running a control heal Lionar. Hyperion's Claim is great for dealing with cards like Arcanist lists. It does really well against Arcanist if they play into that 3x3 area. It directly counters Evolutionary Apex, so which I don't think is a meta deck, but decent in that regard. It's able to get rid of some big threats, so very strong card in control lists. That's it for Lionar. Moving on to Songhai. We have spent a lot of time here, so I'm going to try and go as fast as I can. Katatsu, excellent cycle card, deal 1 damage ping. Fantastic card, honestly, in pretty much both aggressive, mid-range, and control lists. Spiral Counter, it's a bit excessive for removal, and it also has a condition, so I don't think it's that good. You can better off, like early game, yeah, sure, you can use it on Lava Slasher, but I don't think it's worth running. Katatsu is just the cycle, you get the extra card. I think that's better if you're able to combo it with some other removal. Scroll Bandit, fantastic 2-drop. Stealing spell, so your opponent has 1 less of that spell in their deck. So if they're playing like Blood of Air, they'll have 1 less Blood of Air, 1 less Natural Selection if they're playing Natural Selection, etc. Fantastic in that regard. More backstab synergy, more potential to win the game then and there, again, for spell high. So if you're going first and you just misdrag and killing edge this thing, you stole a card and you did and you've done 7 damage backstab, fantastic. And it's also an Arcanist, so I guess you can build an Arcanist list around it, right? Sentinels, Mishuzi, or excuse me, 100 Hand Rakuji, decent Sentinel, deals 2 damage to the minion that summon it. So pretty much it'll clear things like Blood Tier Alchemist, it'll clear Rivas, Heartseekers. The 2 damage ping is pretty good because it can allow your general to face, if that minion survives, it can allow your general to face it typically and eliminate it. So decent, pretty good 3-drop, right? Bishuzi, since it is a general attack proc, it's harder to pull off in my opinion. But if you are able to pull this off, it's flying 2/5 with backstab, so pretty strong if you're able to get it out. Otherwise, your opponent can play around it pretty easily. Next, Mind Kajoni, I think is the best Sentinel out of the 3. The fact that it can give you more cards, maintain your hand size is fantastic. Because it technically will probably be pulling removal spells, which is pretty much good. You can use what your opponent just played and use it against them. Fantastic. Flicker, pretty much only seen in artifact lists, as well as maybe some backstab lists with Mask of Shadows. And Firestorm Mantra, you can run it in there. But outside of that, it's a pretty bad card in my opinion. Unbounded Energy Amulet, this card is trash. You're just better off playing Bangle. Bangle is the same, except your general has Celerity. And yeah, you get 1 attack. But you know, for 1 more mana, might as well just throw a Crescent Spear and you have that +1 attack. So very, very bad artifact in my opinion. Flame Wreath, pretty much decent in Kalios, some Kalios support. It's very understated. Again, it's to get some decent procs, as I mentioned earlier, for 5 mana. You can play this, BBS, and Juxtapositioning. That's a 4 damage AoE. Outside of that, I think it's a very lackluster card, and I think you're better off playing Battle Panda. Twilight Rafiki, RNG is crazy, but if you really want those extra minions in a control list, I know Rivrath has been playing this, then you can play 1 copy of this card. I wouldn't recommend running more than 2. More than 1, because, I don't know, you play this card, you get 3/0 mana aces, and then it feels really bad. But on the contrary, on the flip side, you can get like 6 mana Calligraphers, 5 mana Zendos, 3 mana 4 Winds Magi, and yeah, I guess it's, you know, decent in that regard. But RNG, for me, I don't really highly rate this card because of the RNG faction, despite those minions costing 1. Eternity Painter, this card is fantastic in mid-range control and even aggro list. You could throw this in an aggro list. It is very good removal. Fantastic card, very good against Arcanist and Swarm. Though if you use it against Swarm, you'll be giving them a lot of Battle Pandas, which will kind of hinder your movement, but very strong against larger threats. Bombard, trash. I guess you can run it in a Mechazor deck, right? So, I don't know, at 7 mana you play your Helm, and then Bombard. I guess you can do some damage with your Mechazor that way, but outside of that, trash card. Firestorm Mantra, you build, as I talked about the archetype, very inconsistent. You can run this with artifacts. I think that's the best list for it. Outside of that, inconsistent. On its own, if you just build a pure Firestorm Mantra deck, I think it's very inconsistent. Moving on, Vitruvian. Azure Summoning, flying lists. Not bad for pulling select cards, if you have flying minions. But again, the Swarm flying list is pretty mediocre in my opinion. Very weak to Plasma Storm, very weak to Frostburn. But I really love the idea about it, but outside of that, I don't think it's that good. Aradon Making, very great card, turn 1 if you're playing, again, the example I gave earlier, with Obelisk. You play your Obelisk and you kill the Dervish that spawned from the Obelisk and you get another Exhuming Sand, so you can develop a lot of board presence early on. Pretty good card. Droplift, I think this card is trash. Steal a random artifact from the enemy general and equip it. Yeah, I guess you could, if artifacts become prevalent, so artifacts are pretty common in Aggro Abyss, so you can steal that Spectral Blade. Outside of that, or if Artifact Riva becomes popular again, I guess it's decent to tech that in, but I think Rasha's Curse is your better bet. This is a very greedy card, and I don't think it's that good. Oblivion Sickle, I think it's pretty good. It's a decent one of, even in Xerix, because if you play it with Falchius on 4 mana, you can get an Exhuming Sand and potentially more Exhuming Sands for that matter. Fantastic. Decent 1 to 2 of in pretty much any Vitruvian list. It could be Golems, it can be Obelisk. So, and the fact that it only costs 1 mana is pretty good. So, especially with the amount of draw Vitruvian has, it doesn't really hurt to have this card. Duskweaver, there are better options for the 2 slot. Ethereal Obelisk, Lava Storm Obelisk is now offered. Pex, Dune Caster. You also have Reassemble. So I don't think it's worth running this card. Maybe you can run 1 to 2. I still think this is a rather slow card from what I've seen. But it's tough to make a case to include this in your deck because there are so many things you want in Vitruvian, and I don't think this is one of them. Firestorm Obelisk, another Obelisk, not bad. It's great for controlling the center of the board. Discourages your opponent, especially if you're going first, from playing a minion on the center tile because they'll probably just die unless it's a Pax or something. But otherwise, the 4 health is rather low. I think Ethereal Obelisk is superior to Lava Storm Obelisk in my opinion, just simply because it has more sustainability. It's able to stick a lot better than Lava Storm Obelisk. Reassemble, fantastic cycle card, 2 mana for a draw card, and you're able to reposition your Obelisk for free. Fantastic, very good card. Fate Watcher. Whenever your opponent draws the card, this minion gets a keyword, random as fuck. I think this card is trash. 3 mana, it's a 2/3, it's understated. Terrible. Falchius should be your 3 mana. And if you're not running Obelisk, if you're running Obelisk, you're running Falchius and Fireblaze Obelisk. So this card is trash, honestly. Trigon Obelisk, this is fantastic Obelisk. 9 health is really good. Summon 3 Dervishes, fantastic Obelisk. Wasteland Reef, I want to say okay, mediocre at best. You can run it in like a control list, maybe a 1 of, but with Blood of Air, Sand Swirl Reader, Mirage, Superior Mirage, I don't think there's really much reason to run it, honestly. Which brings us to Sand Swirl Reader. Fantastic removal card, tempo card. Return any minion. So you can return a big threat. If your opponent has 6 cards in hand, you can potentially mill that card. Very strong tempo card. You also get Exhuming Sand, so you'll be able to develop a little bit more board as well. And you can even use it on your own minion. If you don't have Reassemble in hand and you want to reposition a Ethereal Obelisk and you're on 7 mana, yeah, sure. Play this card on it. Fantastic. Superior Mirage, very strong against Abyssian and Magmar. A 2 of inclusion. I wouldn't say running 3 would be necessary, but 2 is very strong nonetheless because it does compete with other cards like Sand Swirl and Blood of Air. So running more of this card really clogs up your 5 slot because that's potentially 7 or 8 mana, 7 or 8 5 mana plays, which is a lot, honestly. And if you're running Golems, you have oh man, I forget that Golem. Sirocco. If you're running Sirocco, that's even more 5 mana plays, so don't want to clog it up too much. Lastly, Cataclysmic Vault, a very great control card, snowballing effect. If you're able to develop a decent amount of board, you can just run behind this on your side of the wall. I say wall because it cuts the board in half, and if you're able to just limit yourself to just your general on one side of the board and your opponent on the other side of the board, this card is fantastic. So definitely 1 to 2 of in some Obelisk lists, or you can even run it in Golem. It's pretty good. For Abyssian, another melt, fantastic. Able to combo it with a lot of things. You can combo it with like Revenant, you can combo it with Thunderhorn, Juggernaut, pretty much any minion you have, fantastic. It's also pseudo removal, definitely a 2 to 3 staple. in most aggressive Cassiva lists. Definitely, you can even make an argument for 3 in mid-range / control Cassiva. You could even run it in aggro Lilith, since you will be running spheres, Sphere of Darkness, as well as Ooze, so you'll have some creep generation there. So Nethermeld, fantastic card. Inkling Surge, I have yet to see people play this. It's a rather slow card. I think you're just better off playing Sphere of Darkness. Yeah, you get a Wraithling. It also has the condition that if you already have another Wraithling, it doesn't include the Wraithling you just summoned. If you have another Wraithling, yeah, you can play this with BBS and you draw a card, and you'll get you'll have 3 Wraithlings. Yeah, it's extra cycle, but I think if you're stacking like a swarm, if you're running a swarm list, I don't think you need this card, because chances are you'll have either Deathfire, Crescendo, Soul Grimoire, or Soul Shatter Pact, because those are 9 buffs, so the chances are you will have those in hand. So I don't see the need for this extra draw in that regard, outside of Sphere. Phantasm, fantastic card in aggro, even in mid-range on control. Because if you just buff up your weapons to astronomical levels, this card is fantastic. It also demands removal early on, or you'll gain a lot of value that way. You can buff up your Thunderhorns, your Spelljammers, your Desolators, pretty much any minion you're running with increased attack is fantastic. Chokeling Tendrils, if you want more removal, like let's say a mid-range and control Cassiva, sure, run this card, but between Punish, Nethermeld, and Demonic Lure, I don't think it's worth running at all. But you can warrant running 1 to 2 copies. I'll be honest there. You can definitely run 1 to 2 copies if you want that extra removal, and don't have your Bloodborne spell available to you. So if you have, like, I guess it works well with Nethermeld. So yeah, I guess you can run 1 to 2 up, but in like aggressive lists, I don't think it's worth running. Shadowstalk, summon a Wraithling behind each enemy, trash. Your opponent will just kill them. Yes, it'll divert their attention, but if they're already pressuring you enough already, then I guess you can avoid it. I guess the only time you can play this card would be in Swarm, if you don't really have a better play, and your opponent has developed the board. Sure, play this card, but outside of that, I don't think this card's very good. Moving on to the Sentinels, Skull Prophet. Whenever your general attack says -1, I think this is trash. It's the worst Sentinel, possibly the worst Sentinel out of all 9 of them, in my opinion. Honestly, no, I don't think it's that good. It does have good stats, I'll give it that. It does have the best stats out of all the Abyssinian Sentinels, but I just think the utility of the other 2 are much better. Bound Tormentor, fantastic in aggro. You can run it there. You'll gain a copy of whatever low-cost minion your opponent played early on. So if they play, like, I don't know, a Windblade Adept or Azurite Lion, you'll get that card for free. Or Ethereal Obelisk, you'll get that for free as well. Very strong in aggro lists. Zaroloth, also very strong in aggro lists. Whenever your opponent casts a spell, you get a 4/4 Fiend, which is 2 mana. It's the Fiend that you get from Variax. If you're a Cassiva, it's a 2 mana 4/4, fantastic. And this ability is continuous. So until this card is removed, you'll continue to get 4/4 Fiends. Mind Lathe, decent 1 to 2 of tech, I think, in both control and aggro lists. You can use it to push face damage. It's great against things like Mecantor. Actually, it won't work against Mecantor. Thinking about it now, unless it's a buff to Mecantor, then yeah, it could work. But you'll be taking a lot of damage in the process, which is why I'm not a huge fan of it. But I guess if you have enough healing and sustain, yeah, you can play 1 to 2 copies of this card, and it's, you know, pseudo removal, pseudo face damage, right? Necromata, fantastic in Lurking Fear decks. Easily the best card to come for Lurking Fear, because it gives them that extra draw, and it also combos very well with Consuming Rebirth and Darkfire Sacrifice. Fantastic 2-drop. It's also a 4/2. You know, avoids Plasma Storm. I guess maybe it'd be better if it was a 3-2 because it can be played into Plasma Storm. But nonetheless, this is exactly the card Lurking Fear needed to gain a competitive edge. Which brings me to the next card. This card is fantastic in both Lurking Fear and aggro. Helps aggro Vizian to keep up the pressure while sustaining itself. So I think it's like a Sarlacc mixed with a Void Pulse all in one. Very strong card, I think. Corporeal Cadence, I think this is better off running in a mid-range Creep Cassava with Juggernauts and big minions, Klaxons. If not, you can run it in Lurking Fear. You use it on a card like Dagona, a Revenant, assuming they stick. Anything with Dying Wish is pretty good combination with the Corporeal Cadence. I think Shadow Reflection is a better, more consistent option, in my opinion. Same with Darkseid. But if you feel like you can get a lot of damage off and you have a lot of minions that can stick, like Lurking Fear, then I think this card is not bad. Doom, not really worth running. It's too expensive. You have to build a deck around it. I don't think this card is that good. I thought it was hilarious, but I don't think it's that good. Moving on to Magmar. Tonal Heart, I have yet to see this card be played. I'll be honest with you. Maybe I guess you could run it in aggro burn Starhorn list. But outside of that, I don't think it's that good. Warpup, cutest thing ever. 1/1. I've seen people try and play this in Grow decks. I think that archetype is where this card belongs. But I feel like you can warrant a copy or two of this in an aggressive or mid-range Voth if you're able to buff it with Greater Fortitude. Not bad in that regard. Just okay overall. Primal Ballast. Shitty Chromatic Cold, I guess, / Greater Fortitude. Terrible. If you want Dispel, run Shroud. Honestly, just run Ephemeral Shroud. I guess you can run this on a Golem, but it's a really bad Greater Fortitude, so really terrible card. Boss Brutality, stun an enemy minion, give your general +1 attack. You can run a copy or two of this in Burnhorn, allow you to trade efficiently early game. Also, as well as preventing your opponent from advancing. Only works on minions though, so you're going to have to find a way to make room for this card. If you can, include a copy or two of it in the Starhorn, but outside of that, I don't think it's just mediocre. Pterodon, I've seen this card put in some work, honestly, so I think this is a decent card, right? 2/8 for 3 mana, fantastic, right? It's 10 points of stats. It's 1 less attack than an Ironclef and 2 less health than an Ironclef for 2 less mana. So this thing, if you throw a Greater Fortitude on it or an Amplification, this thing's a threat. It's able to stick on board and contest mana tiles very well. So good card, good card. Catalyst, cool beast. I've seen this in combo lists. Only really works with Blood Rage. But outside of that, I don't think it's that strong, honestly, in my opinion. Endure the Beastlands. Turn a 2/2 area into Primal Flourish. I think Grow is crap. It's a trash archetype, but this is definitely the card for those archetypes. Risen, I've seen people try and meme with this. This is a meme. It's a 3/2 that whenever your opponent summons a minion, summon a... I mean, if your opponent... Why would your opponent, you see this, your opponent, you can play this protective, but if not, your opponent just hits it with anything and it dies. So, not that strong. Omniseer, though it has great stats, the Primal Flourish is not that strong. I think Grow is very bad still. But that's just my thoughts. Verdant Fulmination. Your minions on friendly Primal Flourish grow. Turn your other minions into Primal Flourish. Same thing. Primal Flourish is trash. Grow is not that strong. Very slow. Too expensive as well. Blood Rage only works with Catalyst, Cool Beast, or if you can get a lot of minions to stick. Then yeah, I think this card's not bad. Decent finisher. mediocre at best, in my opinion. Evolutionary Apex, same thing. I think this is mediocre at best if you're running like a control list, but I think you're better off just tempoing out and playing cards on curve and winning that way, because Magmar has a ton of big minions already, so I don't think you need to dump your entire hand to, or dump 3 to 4 cards of your hand to win the game outright then and there. Grandmaster Craigasm, great in a top decking war, really. If you can flash it out, and if your opponent can't dispel this thing, well, they're in a world for pain. I'll just say that. I love the design. I think it's it's a good card. I think it's better than what people give it credit for. I think it's just a good card nonetheless. Vanar Shivers, decent in Vesper. You can also argue to run a copy or two in Ramp Fae, or excuse me, in any Ramp Vanar list. You can run a copy, but the fact that it can die to Blood Tier if you play this turn 1, and this only works on attack, not counter attack. It's tough to pull off, so I guess you would have to try and warn a copy, trying to get this thing to survive. But with Blood Tier, chances are this thing probably won't stick, so not that great. Crystal Arbiter, it's a Vesper. You can run it in a Vesper deck for sure. You can pull it from Vesper Call, and it's a 2/5, 5/5 on your opponent's turn. Very decent for contesting mana tiles, but I haven't seen much play of it. So I'm just going to say this card is mediocre at best. Freeblade, fantastic, I think, in not just aggro, but also control. You can warn a copy or two. It's a 3/5. It's able to trade pretty efficiently and have some health to spare. Survives 2 general hits. Fantastic. It has Silver Guard Knight stats, which is pretty good. Drake Dowager, though it has the potential to just win the game if it gets an attack off, but usually if you're against Fae, you don't really want to punch, so that's why I don't think Drake Dowager is running. I think this is better in Kara than it is in Fae, right? But if you're able to get the Drake, then that's fantastic, hence why I think it's better in Kara than in Fae. Moonless Basilisk, I think this is fantastic, because if your opponent wants to, your opponent can't remove this outside of Natural Selection and Chromatic Cold, because with spells, because it'll just transform right away. So the ways to beat this card, Tiger's a way to beat it. Chromatic Cold and Natural Selection are the things that I can think of. Egg Morph as well, and Thumpening Wave. But your yeah, this thing will get the boost, but they'll just die. I think this is fantastic. If your opponent wants to use like a BBS to try and test for Moonless Basilisk, it's a 5/5 done in there. So I think this is a pretty good card. Glacial Fissure, I think it's not as strong as people made it out to be on the first day it was revealed. People were like losing their shit. I think there's not much to lose your shit over. You should be wary of this card. This card is very dangerous. I'm still going to say that. But you should be wary of what this card can do. Right? Very dangerous, especially on 6 mana. If you're standing around the center tile for whatever reason, can potentially take 16 damage in that regard. I've seen people play this in mech, because usually if you're playing against mech, you want to stay around the center tile so you can try and dispel whatever corner the Mechasaur may be in. And this card punishes that card. So mixed feelings on this card, honestly. Can't really give it a rating, honestly. Dredger, trash. Blinding Snowstorm. I haven't seen this card play, honestly. I think it's a bit expensive, so mediocre at best. Luminous Charge, fantastic, very strong in wall Vanar. Excellent, especially if you're able to play it in Kara or with Lady Luck, and those things can now go face. That's 15 damage right there. Vesperian Might, very greedy in a Vesper list. I guess you're better off just swarming your opponent, but I guess that's where this card shines, is if you are able to swarm your opponent with Vespers. But Outside of that, I think it's too expensive. Not that strong. Iceberg Ambush, though you get a lot of value out of this, I think this potentially is decent. Again, you don't have to run this in Vespers. You'll just dump this out. You could throw this in any list, really, and you'll get 4 minions for 6 mana. 7 mana's worth of minions for 6 mana, which is pretty good. So I'm gonna label this as a good card, right? Flawless Reflection, fantastic with Ghost Seraphim. Potentially just win, just kill your opponent in 1 hit. You can do like 24 to like 40 damage in 1 turn, especially if you're running Spirit with the Wild. Matron Elvedi, it's not that good. I think you're just better off playing. If it was a 5/7, then I would say yeah, it's a little bit better. But I think you're just better off playing Grandmaster Embla. Neutrals, these things come off with Tigress. Not much to say about it. You know, it's a 2/1 with Rush. Not bad. These are all the things that come off Spriggan. I think Spriggan is hot trash. It's for most factions, I think there are better 6 mana plays. Starting with Lionar, you're better off playing Elix Stormblade. For Magmar, there's Picantor. For Byzian, Klaxon, Vorpal Reaver, Vitruvian, Elmira Healer. What's the other one? For Songhai, Eternal Painter. So that's why I think Spriggans aren't that good. But if I had to rate the Spriggans, these are all pretty decent. Should Spriggan be played in like Gauntlet or something and you get like Glub, whenever Spriggan is destroyed, it gets +3, so you get a 4/4. Not bad. Flying, it's pretty good. You know, it's pretty good in Gauntlet. You get 3. You'll get 3 of these, and if assuming they all hit something, hit a minion, you'll get 6 health. It's not bad, right? This one I think is the best one. 2/3 with Frenzy. It's very good stats for 1 mana, or it's not 1 mana, but you know it's pretty good stats for what you get. Moro, as long as there's Spriggan, this has +3. If you're the owner of Spriggan, I guess this is pretty good because you'll have 3 3/3s and a 6/6 with Provoke. But if it's not your Spriggan and you eliminate the Spriggan, then this card is it's the worst one to pull, honestly. I think Moro or Glub are the worst, but I think Zeta is the best one. Carcinus, I guess you can run it in a Grow deck. It's pretty good. Decent in Argeon, I guess. Very weak to natural selection. But the fact that it can take 2 general hits is pretty good. Not gonna lie. So it's, you know, okay 2-drop. I'm not gonna say it's bad. It has 5 health. It's pretty, you know, it's not bad. Sinister Silhouette. If you're playing a control list, I guess, yeah, you can warrant a copy of this or 2, but usually there are better 2-drops. Komodo Charger, very good, very strong neutral minion. You know, give your opponent 2 Komodo Chargers, but you have a 5/6. Honestly, if they trade themselves into the Komodo Hunter, you have a 5/4 for 3 mana. I think this card's good. Wild Tar, fantastic. You can't punch it because it'll hit you for 5. So whenever you attack, this thing will get +3 attack and then hit you for 5. So the key to play around this is just not attack. Try and find a way to remove it. Chip it down. So if you do decide to take the 5 damage, you only have to take it once. Rockadoctora, okay. Mediocre at best. Not that strong in my opinion. Crack Golem, trash. People are like, oh, you can run it with Corporal Cadence. That's very greedy. Dies to Phoenix Fire, honestly. There are ways to get rid of it. Tiger. Or just cheap removal. Or just trade your, like a 2-drop in or something and, you know, it'll get rid of it. Matter Shaper, 5/4 for 4. The stats aren't bad. I'm not gonna lie. The stats are okay, but the effect is not that good. Thunderhorn, this thing is amazing. The fact that you can run this card in any deck and still do well with it is very strong. So very good card. Excellent card. Gambler, fantastic in Gauntlet. If you run it outside of Gauntlet, then you're gambling. That's all I really have to say about it. I guess mediocre at best. Quahog, good. If it's able to go face a couple times. If you can't, your opponent can abuse the crap out of this, like Lantern Fox. Lantern Fox can abuse this card. What else can abuse this card? Scorn. I've seen people just run their Scorns into this, and then you play another Scorn. And it chips down a pretty good amount. So your opponent can definitely abuse this card. But if you're able to hit face with this, then I think it's not bad. The Tigress, a bit expensive, very weak to natural selection and common removal. A bit expensive as well. Mediocre at best. The Obule, trash, unless you're running like a replace deck, which I think is pretty bad. So yeah, not that good. I guess if it's decent in Gauntlet if you want a better hand, right? If you want some bigger minions, then I guess in Gauntlet's bad. Mage Sworn, fantastic in like control-oriented cards. I do expect to see this card see play in tournaments. I think it's a very good tech card in that regard. Spriggan, again, I think there are, as I said earlier, there are better 6-mana faction plays as opposed to Spriggan, honestly. Emberworm, this thing's a threat. It's like one of the best cards in Gauntlet, in my opinion. But outside of that, it's just too expensive. And for most factions, I think there are better 7-mana plays like Spectral Revenant. You can flash Juggernaut. I just think it's too expensive. Dagona, great in Lurking Fear, fantastic. It's like Odin in Shadowverse, pretty good there. This thing, if you could get it out for cheaper mana, like in Abyssian or Magmar, or if you can ramp out earlier with Vanguard, then I think this card's not bad. Because it demands removal. If you use Transformation removal, this thing gains value because it destroyed the minion that it ate, right? And if you transform it, yeah, you lose your minion. So you'll have to find a way to destroy it. So I think this card's good. Pretty good card in my opinion. So that's the entirety, the tier list, the cards that I think are good / bad / mediocre, how MMR works, how ladder works, what cards are good on ladder right now, what the meta looks like. My throat is dry. It's very dry. So I'll be drinking a ton of water after this. So that's it. Let me know your thoughts. If you managed to stay through this whole thing, this thing lasted a long time. So I do appreciate those that listened. And yeah, guys, have a good Thursday, and I'll catch you guys later.